Welcome to What's Important to You, the podcast where we explore purpose, passion, and the moments that truly matter. I'm James Dean, and each week I sit down with inspiring guests to uncover what drives them, inspires them, and what's important to them. What if the biggest threat to your business isn't the market, but not truly understanding your numbers? In this episode, we dive into financial clarity, responsibility, and what it takes to build an exit-ready business. We explore the hidden cost of DIY accounting, the evolving role of AI in finance, and why strong decision-making starts with clear data. If you're an SME owner who wants less stress, better margins, and a business that works for you, not the other way around, this conversation is for you. Today, we find out what's important to Damian Connolly. Hi, Damian. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to this. So we're going to dive straight in, Damian, with the first question, which is, Damian, what's important to you?
What's important to me? What's important to me is getting SME business owners to understand the value and the importance to them of finance and their finance team and how it drives their success as a business and a business owner, and therefore personally as well.
Okay. So I love that very specific thing, obviously, to do with your business. So what drove you, or what was brought you into this industry?
Lack of options.
Interesting.
So realistically, I grew up in Ireland before the Celtic Tiger. I actually felt a real love for history. And so I wanted to move into something of that nature, whether it be a history professor, a researcher, a lecturer. It wasn't a great time to be doing things like that. So my parents, as all good parents do, said you need to get a qualification that allows you to get a job somewhere else. So basically there was nothing else that particularly piqued my attention. There were a few friends of mine who were doing accountancy. I said, okay, that looks like an international qualification. I'll do accountancy.
Interesting.
So that's how I got into the sector in the first place.
Okay. And so did you then start straight away working for other people in that space, or were you straight into your own sort of business?
No, I've done the probably quite boring and methodical way of getting into the sector and into the industry, which is I left school. I went into a local accountancy practice in South Dublin. I trained there for 4.5 years, did all my exams, did the basic, made the cups of tea, did the basic reconciling work, picked up some paperwork from clients, met some clients, all that kind of stuff. And eventually then I qualified as an ACCA accountant, but I had 4 or 5 years of that sort of practical, basic, simple debit, credit, how to reconcile a bank, simple stuff that people probably look down on a bit now, but actually gives you a really good grasp of how things work and how they don't work and what happens when they don't work, etc. So eventually I just got my qualifications. And then obviously as I had my qualification, I did exactly what my parents told me to do. And I left the country.
Very good. And where did you go when you decided to leave?
Well, I didn't go too far away. I went to the Isle of Man.
Okay.
Which isn't all that far away, but it is a different country, strictly speaking. I mean, really, the reason for going there was that I had a couple of friends who had moved there previously. There was a lot of banking, there was a lot of legal work, there was a lot of accountancy work, a lot of insurance work. So at that time, it was a great place for maybe a younger, qualified professional to go over. There was quite a lot of Irish people over there already. There was a lot of opportunity in terms of, your banking, insurance, etc. So I said, fantastic. They offer a much higher salary than you're going to get in Dublin right at this moment in time, and the tax is significantly better. So I went, why not? I'm keen to get out and try something new. So that's where I went. So I spent a few years working there. Again, the good thing about being in a location like the Isle of Man is things can move quite quickly.
Yeah.
Jobs were a little bit easier to get. It's changed a little bit now, and jobs were quite easy to get, and people move quite often. So they either move within the sector, or what happened more often is people eventually spent their few years in the Isle of Man, went back to Ireland, moved to London, moved to Europe. So you could move quite quickly if you were diligent and if you were doing a reasonably good job. Over the years I was there, I went from just being a bit of a bog standard accountant through to getting involved in some tax planning and tax studying tax and tax planning, all the way through to being a managing director of a group company within a larger business, and then moving into slightly more commercial areas where I was involved in, dealing with new clients, working across a number of different types of businesses, through to, getting more involved in tax planning and getting involved in board meetings.
Yeah.
Managing board meetings rather than formal board meetings. But it means you have to understand where other people are coming from, how other parts of the business worked. The numbers came from somewhere, and the numbers, went into someone's dividends at the end of the year. So it was really, really, really good experience, actually.
Yeah. One of the things that I always didn't know about accountancy before when I met a couple people in relation to, said, when we're going from my previous career within financial services and sort of through that, I couldn't get over actually the examinations, the amount of exams, number of exams, and the length of time it actually takes to qualify. It's quite something really for a sort of outside of what you consider sort of like medical profession. It's quite a sort of an amount, isn't it? It's quite takes some time to get all them together and get that level.
It does. I think I did. It's changed a little bit now over the period of time. But when I did, I think I had 18 exams to do, and there's only so many you can do. So I was doing 2, maybe 3 every six months to get through that, and working at it at the same time. But yeah, it's very extensive. The good thing, though, the really good thing about it, and part of this conversation today, is I'm going to be in some ways negative about accountants, but actually quite positive in many respects. But the good thing about the accountancy exams is that it gives you a really good launch pad to go into different areas. So accountants can go into pure accounting. They can go into sort of an IT role, because a lot of what we do is system driven and process driven. That fits quite well with an IT career. You can go into audit. You can become an economist, which isn't unusual. You can get into banking, which is accountancy but slightly different. So there's a lot of different areas you can move into. You can just move into quite commercial roles as well. So it's a great launch pad, actually.
Yeah, no, because that was the thing, because what the sort of various different roles you've done yourself within your career before you went into sort of business for yourself. You say you could see those various different options available to someone. So, because I'd say many people maybe going into those exams have one particular perspective, thinking, oh, this is the way they'll go. But after doing them all, something else may come up in a different sort of perspective. So the fact that you say it seems quite a lot in having to do those exams, but as you say, would it change people's minds once you're going through that process?
It can do, because you probably find yourself drawn to certain topics or certain subjects over others. And then if you're getting some work experience as well, then something might spark, or something might say, well, actually, I don't need to do the debits and credits. I find myself drawn to tech, so I can really get into system work or system projects or project work more widely. Or I really like valuing businesses, and you move into a whole different area, which is quite commercial, and moves into that sort of M&A space, which is a different kind of beast as well. But also people complain about accountants and how they're quite focused, and maybe they don't look left to right as often as some people would expect them to. But that's because you've got to go through such a long process of doing your exams. You've got to be quite focused, quite driven, and you can't deviate too much, or you end up, spending a decade or so trying to get those exams, because you're not in the flow, or you're not in the routine of just getting into it, getting the grip of the topic, being able to take the key information from it, and then being able to deliver it when it's required. So that's part of the reason why accountants are quite good and fit quite well with what people want in many respects.
Yes.
But it can also be the reason maybe why you don't have a huge amount of external experience, why then people say, well, my accountant isn't very flexible, or isn't very this or that, because that's what you build.
Yes. Well, I was just thinking that, because there's the sort of we have those sort of stereotypes in our heads of various different people in employment and the roles they have, and one, I would say, being the accountant being that sort of so particular, but otherwise it would defeat the purpose if they're not that way, because of all the things that in any business, and I'm sure we'll get into it now when you're talking about sort of the SME side of it, if the finances don't add up, then and they don't balance off the sheet, then it's not really viable. There's either it's not viable in the sense of it's not successful, or there's something potentially dodgy or just poor in the background. So you need that person who is that way, because otherwise, if I think it's like if everyone is the sort of free thinking perception we have of the founder, who's just just all ideas, that's great. But if there isn't someone there counting in the background, then it won't get done, will it?
Or it's even more important that it's what's hidden from sight. If you're doing what some AI programs do, you're hallucinating about what the figures are saying and they're not accurate. What happens is you're going to get a big surprise, or you're going to suddenly hit a brick wall because I've got loads of money. Oh, actually, I don't have any money at all. Boom. So it's really about doing these things gives you the opportunity to know what's happening.
Yes.
And to be able to then make good decisions, make the right decisions at the right time. If you don't know what's going on, then you won't see the problems. You won't see where you're doing things well, where you're doing things not so well. So it's just going to cause an issue. And that's why, to go back to my original, what's important to me, it's the difference between success and somewhere not successful, or somewhere very, very much worse off than that, without having really good grasp of your numbers. Because a good finance team and a good finance structure is a difference between having a successful business, knowing where you're going, being able to do what you need to do, or not.
Yeah. We'll go into the sort of that piece of the business there in a second. But before we do that, because you mentioned AI there, and obviously about the thing about the hallucinations, and it is obviously very much in the ether in the sense of discussions regarding AI and the potential for replacement of roles or jobs. So do you see it coming into the work that you're doing at the moment, and how far do you think it will work or be in that space?
Very good question, James. No, I was at a conference yesterday as well on this very topic, AI and accountancy and the accountancy profession. And I guess I'm somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
I hear a lot of hype about it's going to change work as we know it, and it's going to do this and it's going to do that. I don't personally really believe that. Certainly not in the short term.
Yep.
Having said that, I'm trying to keep up to speed with what it is and what it does and how it does things. And so I do use in our business. So we use note takers. So for meetings such as this, we have an AI note taker that takes a summary and a transcript, which then reduces time for writing up notes afterwards and making sure you don't forget to come back on something you said you would do or something you deal with. So that's a really good use case example of AI. I've got a little AI button that records meetings when they're face to face and does exactly the same thing. And again, it means I don't have to spend the whole meeting scribbling notes on a pad and then trying to remember what was that conversation about again. So again, a really good use case. And we can see AI in some of the software we use. Some of the accountancy software already has elements of AI within it, which I think is called machine AI.
Yep.
But you can see them adding it in. And really what it does, it's not changing the world. It's helping to maybe make the help sections a bit easier. So instead of going into a help section, having to search through to find what you need, it brings it to you, serves it up to you. Or there's elements of that sort of OCR that's been coming in over a period of time where it starts to read documents and summarize things or grab some of the key details. AI is doing a little bit more of that, a little bit more quickly and a bit more accurately. So that's all really, really good stuff and really good use cases of it.
Yeah.
But I can't really see that it's going to change the whole business environment, certainly in the near future. Because I think there's too much we don't understand. I think there's too much people are selling that there's no real framework behind it. And there's also problems that we don't see yet. So there was some discussions at this conference yesterday about there's probably one thing we're not talking about is AI analysis tools, AI, maybe not surveillance, but checking that what you're giving AI to do.
Yes.
There's then a job role that comes in to check that what it's done is accurate and and is within the framework that you've set it or you want it to operate within. So there's all these things that we just don't know and we can't really put our fingers on. But also having seen how long it's taken the internet, because again, when I was working offshore on the Isle of Man, there were some really creative people who were doing things with the internet and said, oh, in 5 years' time, there won't be shops, there won't be this, there won't be, people will just be in their house buying online. And at the time, it was quite interesting. And, there were people putting money investment into this, which is why some of it was going through the old man at the time. But 20, 25 years later, the world has changed, but it's not changed in the way that people were telling us back at that time, and it's changed in a different way. So yes, it's definitely changed the world, but it's done it incrementally over time as well. So I personally think AI will do the same. It'll change some things quite quickly, which you can see already. But this big change is going to boom the world in the next 3 or 5. I think there's a lot of hype. It's a lot of people getting investment into their businesses and selling something that's got AI on at the end of it. But it certainly will over a period of time. But I think it'll be slower, more incremental, and it'll probably go in directions that people aren't talking about at the moment at all.
Hi, James here. If you've been watching and thinking, I would like to make a change, but not sure where to start, that's where I can help. My 12-week coaching program will enable you to reconnect with what matters most and move forward with clarity and confidence. If that sounds like you, head over to jamesdeancoach.com. Now let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you were saying that, thanks for that, because it's really interesting that obviously you were at a conference about it. And when you were talking about it there in what you do, it's interesting. You say the way you uses it to enable things to be like meeting notes and accuracy in regarding that, and the helping the way it does it pulls things out. But for me, I was thinking there as a sort of I'm coming to you as the business owner for you to help me in whatever you do. I'm putting my trust in you, not the AI at the moment. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure, like as we talk about now, that any SME, their sort of whole financial planning, their whole financial world is going to be the key to their success. So there's an element of trusting the person at the moment. That's someone like yourself that's got all the years of experience versus typing it into a machine. You know what I mean? So because as you say, it's the things that we don't know. I think there's an element of it can give you information. It can give you a starting point, and definitely that. But it's also, because I use it myself in various different things, but it could be very much the, in some ways, the worst, not the worst of the best way, but it's like, it can be like a puppy if you want it to be. It'll tell you you're great if you want it to. You know what I mean? It can tell you, it'll way that you feed it is the way to give it back. It mirrors in some ways behaviors. But versus the numbers, when the work that you do, the numbers in sense of what's telling the story, isn't it? It's the numbers don't lie, is that sort of cliche, isn't it?
Yeah, but again, you can see it now. And again, the reason I think AI is not going to change the world is because, most of the middle market, the SME software we use at the moment is quite familiar to most people. QuickBooks, Xero, Sage. But actually, there are a lot of clients are only touching the edges of that software in the way that they use it for their business. And this is 10, 15 years after this relatively straightforward, simple software is out in the marketplace. And there's still a lot of businesses aren't using it anywhere near as much as they should, or a lot of them are using it wrong. If I had £1 or I had €1 for every client I've come across, whether they've come to work with us or not, but they've come across my desk, and I say, you're just using it like wrong. This is not helping your business because it's software. It's relatively easy to use. You feel comfortable enough using it, but I can tell you from looking at a few things that it's wrong. So you're working off those, wrong figures, and you're making wrong decisions. Gosh. And that's on software that we're all quite familiar with. We're all fairly au fait with. We have a reasonable good grasp of it. So that's why I think AI is a distance away, because even if the Microsofts of the world use it in the next 5 years and they do amazing things, it might take another 20 years before it trickles down. Because something as simple as even bank feeds, connecting your bank account to your account software, which is not as old as the hills, but it's around for a number of years. Most people can do it reasonably well. There are a number of times I've seen clients who aren't even using that, or worse than that, they've connected it and they've got stuff in their account system that is just completely wrong, or they've not reconciled anything, which means the figures aren't in their accounts at all. So even with what we would now term as relatively straightforward, relatively simple software that should be helping everyone's business, there's a lot of people at ground level are not using it properly, or they're using it, but they're using it wrong. That means it's not just not helping, it's actively hampering their business.
Wow. That's quite surprising, considering you say how long those software packages like Sage or QuickBooks or those sorts of have been available. Is it an element of, is that just the people using it haven't got the technical or the education around those softwares, or is it also the fact that they're trying to do the role of an accountant when they're just missing all of the training and education?
I think it's broadly the latter. I think part of it is the
Yeah.
marketing around some of this is that it's so
Yes.
easy to do your bookkeeping. It's so easy to do your tax returns and send it to HMRC. It's the software companies, part of it's their own fault.
Yes.
A lot of people say, oh, I can do it myself. Oh, I'll do it myself. Oh, it's dead easy. What do I need you for? And the reality is we wouldn't be doing 18 exams and studying for 3 or 4 years for nothing if it was all so easy. And so when I'm having conversations with clients, and sometimes you get the opposite. You get the opposite. People saying, I'm really sorry, but I really don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not sure when you talk about sales invoice, I really don't understand it. And I go, that's fantastic, because do you know
Yes.
what? You're a fantastic doctor. You're a fantastic, marketing executive. You're a fantastic plumber. You don't need to know this, and you shouldn't need to know it, because that's the profession you're in. This is not your profession.
Yes.
So, follow the instructions that we give you to do the things you need to do, and let us do the rest. So you've almost got that strange half-life of, some people are apologetic about not being accountants or having any knowledge, which is fantastic because they're not. But then you've almost got a lot of people at the same time think that accountancy is so easy they can do it themselves alongside their plumbing,
Yes.
medical, marketing. And so that's part of the reason why I do podcasts like this and the blogs I do and various other things, is to say, there are certain things you can do that are made easier by using software, but actually the thinking behind it, the seeing what's right, the seeing what's wrong, the understanding the figures, the keenness, the interest to get things absolutely spot on, which accountants are designed with, made to do, isn't in your DNA for the most part. So therefore, they're all the areas that you're missing out on. So yes, you can raise a sales invoice. By all means, do it. The system allows you to do that. By all means, send some information into QuickBooks or Xero, or do a little bit of bank reconciliation. But actually, that's the really, really simple stuff around the edges. It's the other things that when it's gone wrong, or you're not quite sure what to do, or you forgot what you did last month, that's the kind of stuff that is ingrained in the accountant and in the bookkeeper, and allows us to take that on and get it done right.
Yeah. And without obviously going into naming any company or persons, but have you seen it where people have been trying to do it themselves and they really have sort of put themselves into a really sort of poor position, negative position financially?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. From doing something that you would consider, is it simple stuff they've missed or really important? What's it, the sort of big things that they've missed that put themselves into a place where it's now, okay, this is serious?
Well, it can be simple as they haven't done all the banking work they should have done that is relatively easy, that they say I can do, but either they never get around to do it, or there's a lot to be done and they go, oh, I haven't got 3 hours to sit down and do this. And then the next time they look at it, 6 hours worth of work.
Yes.
But then they're looking at figures that say we've got 100,000 euros sitting in the bank account, but in fact they've got zero because they've got those 400 bank transactions that they didn't push into the system and allocate correctly, which would take that balance down to zero. So that's an example. And you can have, slightly different variants of that, but that isn't, that's not an unusual thing.
Oh my gosh.
Or you've got clients who just do things wrong, and then they do it wrong a second time, and then they try and correct and they do it wrong again. So it might be that they've done something on their VAT return and then they've tried to correct it, but it makes it worse. And then they try and correct it again and the next VAT return is incorrect. Or they're raising lots of invoices but not credit noting them or not taking them out of the system, so they end up paying lots of VAT on something they should never have paid. Or they are looking for a loan and they present figures that are inaccurate because they've got all these invoices that shouldn't be there because they've made a mistake with them 3 or 4 times at 5 or 10,000 euros a pop.
Oh my God.
So, anything you can think of has probably been done. And in many cases, it's not hugely dramatic. It just means that they're operating at a slightly, inaccurate level. But at times you can see things that have been done so dramatically incorrectly that you're sitting there, I can't believe you are still trading.
Yeah. Oh my God. Right. And as you say, a lot of the times it's incremental. And as you say, and I think essentially then when they've done something and it's gone in wrong, they're trying to guess the fix and then potentially making it worse, or thinking they've got the right fix to make it. But they're not necessarily knowing what they're trying to effectively balance in that situation, are they? They're just effectively winging it in some ways.
Yeah, because they aren't accountants, so
No,
they
exactly.
wouldn't
Yeah,
even
yeah,
know where to look to
yeah,
try and get
yeah,
under the bonnet or get under the
yeah,
skin
yeah,
of it. So it's not surprising, and I don't blame them for it. But that's part of
yeah,
your sort of dichotomy
yeah.
of it's so easy I can do it
Sure.
versus there's certain things you can do and I think should be doing, but then there's certain things
Yes.
you should leave to the
Yeah.
accountant to do.
Yeah. And surely then as well, because it must be my thinking then is like, say, the couple examples used was like a plumber or someone who's running a medical practice or something like that. The idea that, as you say, the marketing is you can do it all yourself by using these softwares and tools and stuff. But you say one is the time to do it, the knowledge of being able to do it, even just to use the software, let alone understanding, as you say, you said under the hood. But I'd say is there an element of sometimes a short-sightedness from the person thinking, I don't want to employ an accountancy because it's money out the door as such. I'll just do it myself. But then once you've tried it yourself, it's actually costing you more than if you employed the accountant in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Because what'll happen is it probably needs to be corrected at some point. So that'll cost you extra money further
Exactly.
down the line twice over to
Yes.
correct it rather than do it right the first time.
Yeah.
Then there's also the issue that you're doing something that you probably don't like. You probably
Yes.
don't really understand. You're probably doing it grudgingly. You're probably
Yeah.
doing it when you could be doing something else.
Yeah.
So instead of, coming up with creative ideas as a marketing agency or, working on a sales plan if you're involved on the sales side of thing or dealing
Mm.
with a client's project, in fact, you're sitting there and trying to correct
Mm.
simple accountancy transactions instead of, getting on and really getting into the flow of your business and what your superpower, your strength is and why
Yeah.
you set your business up. But also you're not focused because you're worrying about the things on the accountancy
Yeah.
side that you kind of think you should be able to do, but you're not able to do.
Mm.
It's cheaper overall, really, to
Yes.
get somebody in, and particularly as your business is growing, you're getting larger, having that framework to keep you in check, to keep all the elements of your business in check, to push you in the right direction, to give you the freedom to go and do what you need to do becomes
Mm.
ever more valuable. Because what'll happen is, oftentimes people say, I'm thinking of employing someone, or I'm thinking of doing a marketing campaign, or I'm thinking of, and you can't give that answer because I don't have the information. You don't have the
Yeah.
information. It's actually quite key to your business. But again, if you had
Mm.
someone who was keeping all that up to speed, then it would be an easy job to go, well, let me look at your figures. And
Yeah.
then I can say, well, actually, that looks a bit problematic. This looks great. Explain a bit more about this. What are you trying to do? And then I can take those figures and then say, well, this is what your year looks like if you keep doing what you're doing, or if you can get one or two projects. Do you think that's realistic? And then you say, well, okay, I think you can take on that person. It's definitely going to cost you this much. By month 6, if they're not delivering something, you probably need to consider, is it the right thing? Or that marketing campaign, I'd review it a few months in, see what you're getting in. If you don't give another 3 months. And then if it's still not coming in and bringing in the revenue you expect, then I'd probably have another discussion and say, do we continue or do we change something? But you can't have those discussions. You can't
Mm.
make those decisions if the basics aren't done.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that kind of brings us back, it brings us all the way around now to exactly what it is you do. So the first thing, so take us again of like, what is it you and your business help other businesses with? Take me through it.
So having worked offshore for a while,
Yeah.
then I worked in Australia for a year with a couple of interesting businesses there. Then I moved to London, and then I've been in London for the last, 20 odd years. And I've worked in a couple of privately owned businesses, private equity backed marketing agency. And then finally I decided I'd had enough working with others. And that's when I set up my own business, which is Sakura Business Solutions, which is an accountancy practice. And what we do is exactly what I've said. We do the basics, we do the outsourced bookkeeping, we do all the compliance and keep business owners out of jail and out of trouble.
Mm.
And we also run some finance teams, maybe for businesses that are growing fast, are keen to keep their people focused on what they need to do. And then we can just run all the cost management, the payment runs, the compliance, the bookkeeping, sit down with them every month or every quarter and allow them then to see what's happening in the business and make decisions. So that's kind of what the business as a whole
Yeah.
does. What I do is fractional CFO. So I'll go in for a couple of days a month and work with businesses that are growing. Typically sort of £1 million, €1 million is that sort of sweet spot where things get maybe a bit overwhelming, a bit more complex. You need the basics in place. You need the right software and processes in place at that stage for everyone to do the job that they need to do.
Yeah.
And then for business owners who've been running business for a while, maybe thinking of retiring, or there's been some ill health, or it's just time, then I work with them on their exit planning.
Okay.
Because that's quite an underserved area, and it's an area that I've worked on a couple of times in my career, and it's maybe not frustration for me personally, but to see business owners maybe selling their business for a price that doesn't reflect the time and the effort and the real value of the business that they've created, because they just haven't dealt with a few simple things, or they haven't put the time in to plan and prepare correctly, which costs a bit of money, it costs a bit of time, but actually has multiple benefits in terms of the value it brings to the business. So that's why I'm sort of moving more into that area of trying to talk to business owners and educate them at an earlier stage, so that they can, don't sell it for a couple 100,000 if you can sell it for a couple of million by spending hopefully not 6 months, but 12 or 18 months getting it ready, getting prepared, getting your team prepared, getting the finances prepared. So they're kind of the areas that I focus on personally.
Interesting. So in some ways now, with that going into that part of as well, with the exit plan as well. So in some ways, you're going from almost the full potential life of a business in some ways. Do you do much with startups, or is it more established businesses?
It's more, I mean, yes, as a business we'll do work with startups, but there's not a great deal for me to do with a startup. So again, in my background, some of the business I worked in London were sort of 30, 40, 50 million pound turnover. They were some very fast growth. They expanded overseas. They were starting up new product launches. They were getting licensed. They were acquiring other businesses. So after a number of years of running your own business, when you suddenly realize, why am I still doing the bookkeeping and the payroll? I've kind of turned the page in the last sort of 18 months to 2 years. And I said, what I should be doing is this kind of work. And I've set up my team with my own internal processes to say, get myself out of the business and just do the stuff that's of the most interest, the most value, the highest impact for clients. So they're just the two areas. So fractional CFO for growing businesses, and then exit planning work with businesses who have grown and are now looking to move into something different, retire, whatever it might be. And I think it's a sensible arc that I could talk about and people will understand as well.
Absolutely. There's two questions I've got. The next one is, because you decided then to go into business for yourself. So what was it like then for yourself to set up the business? Any sort of, do you think, lessons that you learned when going for it yourself?
It's harder than you think. So I had worked in a business that was privately owned and grown really, really fast. So I'd seen a lot of change, a lot of problems, and a lot of challenges that brings. And then I'd worked in a private equity backed business, which was sort of on its way to exiting. It was all very organized and very structured and so on.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd seen the arc of sort of business startup through growth, through exit, etc. And I thought, well, I'm pretty well set up to understand what's coming down the line. But then when I set up my own business, it always takes longer. Everything takes more time. Your time just isn't available to you like it used to be, because you're responsible for everything.
Yeah.
And even areas where you think, and even if you get people involved, and third parties, you bring them in, you still need to spend time with them. You still need to brief them. You still need to provide oversight. You still need to do the accounts. So even though I came into knowing what I was getting into, everything still takes a lot more time, a lot more energy. It's a lot slower. It's a lot more difficult. And you get distracted as well more easily, because a new client will come in, there'll be some great deal of work. You'll go away in 3 months and work with that, most of your time, but you won't have done your marketing work. You won't have done your networking. You won't have maybe kept your own accounts up to date.
Yeah.
One or two of your team will have had a problem or an issue and would have gone off the boil, or someone will have said, actually, I'm unhappy over something. I'm going to move on somewhere else. And suddenly then you're recruiting for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
So there's all these things that can distract you away from what you really want to do. So I knew what I was getting into. I planned it as much as I could, but still, the reality of it is always different and always harder and more challenging. And it's never in a straight line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I think that, thanks for sharing that, because I think it's important for people who are listening, because many people who have come on the show like yourself, or people listening, are either getting into business themselves as an individual, or as maybe as a small business. It's a great thing that people are doing it, but it is that reality. So even like for someone like yourself who's was in the thick of it from the outside or within an employee, and having all the experience he had, having all the knowledge, it's still sometimes to say, when you're on the other side of the desk, so to speak, the reality of, like, because it's that thing, you're at the so much of it is outside your control. Some of it is, and you say it could be other people, circumstance, time, and things like that. So it's interesting and it's the same thing that people say when they come on here as well. It's like, oh, it does take a little bit longer than we expect. The things that'll come up, and it is being able to adapt to those things, isn't it? It's being able to go, okay, what didn't work, the lessons we learned along the way, how do we change it? Was it when you were setting up, was there did you know the sort of, if we talk about like the whole thing of business, your ideal client, the people, the companies or whatever that you wanted your clients to be, was that clear in your mind, or did that change as your business set up?
I think I had a few ideas in my mind, but I don't think I was as clear as I could have been. And you've also got to realize that as an accountant, I'm not a natural salesperson. So that's always been the challenge.
Sure.
And of course, you do get clients coming to you, you do get people referring clients to you, but actually you've got to be consistent. You got to keep doing, you got to do it day in, day out to build a business, which is what I was trying to do. And it's just, again, it just takes a lot of time. It's very hard. You've got to be consistent. So again, if you get some interesting clients, you do some work, you do it for 3 or 4 months, you take your eye off the ball in terms of continuing with the sales and marketing. Then suddenly nothing's happening for 3 or 4 months. And then you're saying, oh my God, I need to get back into this. Then you do it. Then you get caught up in something else again. So you've got this constant sort of, and even with the best will in the world. And then from my perspective, sales and marketing probably hasn't been my favorite thing in the world to do. There's nothing I enjoy better than doing accountancy.
Yeah.
Or advising on something, or helping, troubleshoot something, or fix or resolve a challenge. And so, I've made the same mistake, even though I know what I'm doing. In some respect, you still get distracted, still get taken away. And the other thing to bear in mind is it's 24/7. Even when you're not working, you're thinking about work. Even when you're on holidays, you're thinking about work. You probably don't go as holidays as often because you're thinking about what you're going to miss out on and what you need to be around to do. So it is 24/7, but at least I think now I'm kind of getting to the stage where the 24/7 piece isn't around what have I forgotten, what problem are we dealing with. And it's more about, that's an interesting thing that we could start to do, or that work we did with a client. How can I communicate that so we get more of those types of clients or more of that type of work? So it's less the panic and mic drop problems, a little bit more about interesting. What can I do? How can I do it differently? How can we do more of this? That kind of stuff. But it is a 24/7. Who tells you it isn't, I think, is probably a bit like some of those AI merchants. They're basically lying to you.
Yeah, no, I think it's so true, because it is, if you're doing anything for yourself, it starts and stops with you. That's the truth of it, and it's whatever the sort of two sides of the coin, or the double-edged sword. It's like you have the choice to market yourself or do whatever the business you want, but you're also responsible for it as well. So you can't have one without the other. If you want the sort of quote unquote freedom to do your own thing, you have to take the responsibility that you're doing your own thing. So you have to die on your own hill. Yeah,
everything stops with you. The book stops with you on everything. And even if you get staff in place, everything still stops with you, because if they go ill, or if they want to go on holidays, or if they're not sure about something, if they do something wrong, if they make a mistake, which happens from time to time, the book stops with you to make sure that you get out and you resolve it, you fix it, you keep it ticking over. So there's no, obviously if you can get to a certain stage where you're able to build a bit of team and a bit of depth and get the right people in the right places doing the right things, then it becomes a bit easier, and you're less involved in that sort of day-to-day problematic. That's someone else then who'll deal with that along with the rest of the team. But that takes a lot of resilience, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of weekends, a lot of late nights to get there. And even then you need a bit of luck, I think. So alongside a really good finance team and a finance structure, I think every successful business that you speak to will have that. But they'll also say, I've had some luck along the way.
Yeah. But I think even to the point that you just said about a minute ago about the whole thing of marketing and sales wasn't necessarily your sort of strong point or you'd lean into. Yours was about, obviously your accountancy, and it's doing that work and the work you do now. But it very much is in the same way we were talking about businesses that have now work with you, and you're like, oh, they were trying to do it themselves the whole time, and then they've made these either mistakes or errors or ignored things, and it's costing them money. In the same way, it's having that, it's that being, as any sort of person or in business, the willingness and the courage to accept where your strengths are and where you're not strong. And then to where you're not strong, to ask for the help, whether it's from employing someone as an employee, whether it's bringing someone in on a temporary basis to do a piece of work and a project or whatever it is. But it's like, we can try, and sometimes it's hard, like, to do things on your own. And if you might want to do that, but even if it's just employing someone as a temporary person just to do a piece of work, they'll do it quicker, they'll do it better. And because in the end of it is trying to get business. That's the game of it. Is the aim of it, as much as the doing something you enjoy, doing something you think that's purposeful, valuable, but you still have to make money for it. You know what I mean? So it's having that knowing, well, where do I need the help? And then asking for the help.
And knowing that it's probably going to take a bit of time to get it up and running.
Yes.
That's always a challenge, because even when we take on some clients where they've got challenges or problems, and sometimes they say, well, why are you asking me all these questions? Why? Because I need to get a grip on, what is you're doing, how you're doing it, where your key problems are, what are the issues you can see that I need to focus in a bit and understand things that I need to know. And then I can take it away from you and say, all I need you to do is this, because I'm now able to take this on. I can tidy it up, I can troubleshoot, I can set it out, and I can present the information that you've now told me you need for this and this and this and this. But you've got to put the work in to help me get started. And sometimes clients don't necessarily understand that, but I think it applies to everything. If you bring in a salesperson, you've got to spend some time with them, keep an eye on them, monitor them, push them in the right direction, correct, move them in the right direction again. And the same with marketing. You bring in a marketing person, they'll spend ages saying, tell me about the business, tell me about you, tell me about how you do things. So nothing can just be passed off.
No.
You've got to put the work in, get them on the same level as you, get them on the same page, and then hopefully then you can step away and then they do 95% of it and you go, great, now I've got the time to do.
Yeah.
But that can be a challenge for some people to do. It can be a challenge to find the time to do that. But ultimately, if that's what you want, you've got to go through those steps to get there.
Absolutely. I'm always interested in, when I'm talking to someone who's in business or working with people, I'm always interested in the sort of the after picture of when you've worked with a company or a client. So is there, again, you don't have to name anyone, but even just, or specifically or general, the sort of difference in an individual or a group of people once you say they've come to you with their issue, their problems with their financial plan, you've worked with them and got them to from the A to the sort of B and continuing. What is it like for them once they've got those things in place that you've helped them with, and they're then, that it's kind of taken care of? What's the change in them? Is the question.
In them personally?
Yeah.
Well, actually, you'd be surprised how often it is personal.
Yeah.
People say accountants this and that and the other, but actually a lot of the things that we do, a lot of things we fix, they impact people personally. So some of those outcomes might be, you've suddenly got a visibility of your numbers, you got visibility of the cash in the bank, maybe you got visibility of what's coming over the next couple of months. And suddenly the client says, okay, actually I can now pay myself a decent salary and take some additional money out to buy a house or buy that car or go on the holiday. I wanted to go to Disneyland. And it's not really accountancy, but that's the impact of having sorted maybe an ongoing problem out and got in clarity and saying, now this is how we're going to do it moving forward. It can be a business owner looking to grow the business, but they can't do anything because, again, they're not certain as to what's happening. Everything's a bit messy or it's a bit unclear. And then being able to clarify it all out then allows them to go, okay, right, what we're going to do, we're going to put this marketing campaign in place. We're going to employ 3 people here, here, and here to do this and this and this, which is something that maybe they were planning to do for a couple of years. They never quite did it because they never had the certainty or the clarity. And so being able then to come in, troubleshoot, maybe help out their finance team, get them a bit more structured, a bit more organized, tidy up the information in QuickBooks Zero, get it presented in a consistent way on a monthly basis, then suddenly they've got the clarity they need and they go, oh, this is so much better. I don't need to worry or think about it, have it at the back of my mind anymore. I now know what's happening and I can take those decisions and I can see how those impact the business. So it's quite personal, a lot of it.
Yeah, no. So no, thanks for sharing that, because that's where I was interested, because it's like the sort of world of sort of finance and accounting and a lot of it is in a sense of, I said medical earlier, in the sense of clinical. It is numbers. There's binary things that we have to do. It's filling in all those phrases, adhering to, say, compliance. All of those things that have to be done in a correct way, an orderly way. And then, but you think the impact is going to be, obviously the business will be in a better position. Ideally, it's going to be more viable. But then the other layer onto that of the actual person, as you say, it's less worry. So to me, in a sense, from what I'm thinking from a coach, it's like, oh, you might sleep better, you might eat better, you might just feel better. Oh, I can now earn, particularly from the business. I can go on holiday. So the sort of potential ripple effect of something that seems so sort of
Regimented,
benign. Yeah,
regimented.
exactly. Yeah. The actual life impact.
Yeah.
By getting this organized, this sort of thing that people are either putting off or thinking they can do themselves, or, as you say, it's kind of like that regimented thing at all. That, because if you don't have, as you say, the mind like yourself, it's almost like just people just want to just scream at it, but they're not seeing the bigger picture. There's the business side of it, which of course is important because it's their business, but the actual life impact
is huge.
Huge.
I mean, I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about the fractional CFO piece, a lot of it is about overwhelm. The reason people will finally say, look, I think I need someone at a higher level is because they're feeling overwhelmed and they're maybe struggling to focus on what they should be focusing on. Maybe they're not gone on holidays for a while because they're trying to catch up and they're overwhelmed with everything. And then having someone to come in and say, right, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. You need to do this. I'll do this. This will give us this. Takes away the overwhelm, which then means they can go, right, I know what's happening. I'm going to go on holidays. I can sleep better. Or it can be as simple as you basically rescue a business that was maybe very close to everyone in the business being made redundant, and your work has meant that they all keep their job.
Yeah.
Because the problems have been identified, a solution has been put in place, and actually instead of them just walking into the abyss and suddenly running out of cash or running out of road, essentially, let's not talk about the business only. You've basically kept all those
people
5,
employed.
10, 15 members of staff in a job. But then there is the piece around the business owner as well, which is suddenly they go, okay, I'm actually better off than I thought I was. Or actually now I can really grow the business like I plan to do and employ a few new people and pay myself more, think more about the future. Because again, if you've got that clarity, suddenly you can go and push on and you've got the tools to be able to push on, grow the business, grow the revenue, grow the team, grow out the bottom line. So it has a lot of impacts that, and again, we don't talk about it often enough, but actually that is what happens. Or in a business where the processes are all over the place. Some business I worked in previously, I came in and very successful business, growing really, really fast, but everyone across the business was doing their own thing in their own way and didn't really talk to each other. Or when they did, it was about, well, did you do that thing because I need to give you this? I didn't tell you that. And if you can, over a period of months, streamline it so it becomes more regimented, but actually most people are more comfortable with that because then they know all I've got to do is my bit. And I know that the person over there who we had an argument was with a couple of months ago over this and this won't have to, because either they've got it or they can come back to me and I can tell them what I've done. And now they know what they need to do. So actually it can just take a lot of stress and tension out of a team and a growing business, as well as giving the ability to the business owners to make the right decisions at the right times as well. It just takes a lot of tension and maybe keeps people in a job. So instead of losing a number of your good team members through stress and frustration, the accountants come in and reorganize and put those processes in place and make things a bit more rigid, makes life more bearable and more fun for everyone within the business, as well as improving the profitability, as well as giving better decision making, as well as supporting the ongoing growth of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm glad you went there, because I think it was important. I think I wanted to touch on that, because I think it's whenever I talk to someone, is the ripple. I was talking to someone actually just yesterday about, she was like a business consultant for coaches. So that was her business and growing business. But again, the word she used was that ripple, the sort of ripple effect of what she's trying to do. And the same thing that is pertinent to what you said there, because it's if this thing is done right, if the financial planning or the finances of a business is done correctly, and as you say, taking away some of that ambiguity, taking away some of the potential conflict, if things are running in a much more cohesive way, and the foundations of it is running, I don't want to say run itself, but running it in a much more structured way, then the ripple of what the people will be able to do within the business or on the business is going to be much more impactful.
Yeah. And if you can get the finances of the business in order, one of the results of that typically is that the business owner's finances then are put in better order as well.
Of course.
So one of the things I mentioned about doing some exit planning with business owners is you'd be surprised how many business owners have a huge amount of cash or assets within their business, but they've nothing personally.
Wow.
And so part of that planning is getting to understand that, well, look, we don't need £500,000 sitting in your business. Why do you need it? Your run rate's 20 grand a month or 30 grand a month, and you're bringing in 20, 30 grand a month. You don't need 600 grand. Why is it there? Well, it's there just in case. And then if you sit down and say, tell me about you. And then they say, well, I'm on minimum wage and, I'm renting my flat. And you go, well, actually what we need to do is we need to process then from a tax point of view, plus also or the exit. No one wants to buy your £500,000 cash. They want to buy your business. But it's about how do we get that 500,000 into your personal wealth and not just leaving the business because of a bit of uncertainty or fear. Let's buy that house. Let's get that car. Let's put something into your pension. And again, it's not unusual to see business owners who have loads of money in their business, but very little personally. And even if they're not exiting, that'll be the kind of conversation I would have now with clients. Typically annually, I'd sit down and say, let's just run through what you have and what assets you have and liabilities. And, is that where you should be? And let's look at the business. The business seems to be okay. Should we not be looking at trying to improve your own personal financial position? Because the business looks fine, but particularly when you come to an exit, you want to get as much out of the business over a period of time to manage your tax charge over that period of time. But also, the business doesn't need it. You need it. So we need to get it to you, but give us some time to get it out tax effectively rather than try and do it last minute when you're trying to sell the business and they say, well, I don't need the cash.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really interesting sort of point. And is it with those people? Is it sometimes because you say that the fear of them taking money out of the business and thinking, you say, just in case something they needed in the business? Or is it because it's interesting that they would have it, the psychology or the mindset to run the business, to earn the money within the business and the revenue, and they've done everything to make it successful. But then there's obviously some sort of block in their head to thinking that they can't use it for themselves. Do you know what I mean? It's an interesting dichotomy there that they.
And some of it might be. And some of it might be they just haven't had someone telling them that the company does not need it. It's there. You want to leave it there, or do you want to use a person because it's not going to be needed anytime soon, unless you can see a problem coming down the line. And some was just as simple as just someone needs to tell them, and maybe they just haven't been told that there's nothing
to do this.
That there's no reason for that to be in the company. It's never going to need it.
It's just. Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective that they would, that they could be living themselves in a sort of poorly financial way, if you know what I mean. Putting themselves under pressure in a sense of but have a successful business, as you say, have money there. So it's an interesting,
and you do occasionally have the opposite, where someone's taking all the money out and you got to say,
sure.
no, you need to stop.
Put it back.
The business needs some of this money. You
Yes.
can't have it all.
Yes.
So sometimes it can be the opposite as well. You've got to stop them taking the money out. But actually, more often than you might think, it's the other way around.
But again, it just highlights to me again, if someone is in, making that sort of money from whatever they've created, they're obviously very good at what they're at their business. That's what they're really good at, because it's obviously making some money, or maybe not enough at the start. If they're taking out more than they really should be. But if the person, you say, it's more common that they're leaving money in it, again, it just highlights the importance of someone like yourself to go, no, you could be doing it a different way. You could be doing it in a much more beneficial way to you, and it's not harming the business. Do you know what I mean? Like it's you're putting yourself at a personal disadvantage when you don't need to be. But again, it's having someone because if they're still worried about the money, it means that they don't understand it. Do you know what I mean? It's like it shows that there's a gap.
They don't have the clarity that actually they should have. And again, that isn't about basic accountancy, debits and credits. It's about being able to communicate, present, show, have the conversations. And again, if that's something you learn over time, I wouldn't say that I knew all that 25 years ago, but it's through the different jobs I've had. It's now running my own business and speaking to business owners more often. You learn it. And also, you maybe think about presenting it or being a bit more proactive around it. So again, one of the things I try and do with clients, again, annually, is it's not accountancy. It's got nothing to do with the job that I do on a day-to-day basis, but things that I've seen over the years. So now I say, well, have you got a will in place? Have you got, have you got life insurance? Have you got income protection? Have you got medical insurance? Now, it's nothing to do with the accountancy side of things, but actually it's the kind of questions that do come up, or things where if I do have the discussion, someone says, have you even thought of that? Can you do that? And so now what I've done is I've got a sort of list of things that I sort of bring out, and I say, right, we'll just run through this. Have you got a will? Okay, well, you should do. Good for tax efficiency, good for you personally, good for your family. Have you got income protection, life cover, this, that, and the other? And then we can extend to things like if you've got business partners, shareholder agreements, shareholder protection, insurance, etc. And then I get them to run through, what do you own? What are your debts? To try and give them position and say, oh, I'm fairly comfortable here. This is good. Oh, okay. And I said, well, actually, there's loads of money in the business. Should we not be? So over time, I've built this now process to try and move a little bit outside the accountancy to a bit more communication, being proactive, trying to flag up things that maybe aren't part of the job spec, but are part of the job spec, because if you don't tell people, they say, well, why didn't you tell me? Well, now I tell them.
Yeah. No, isn't it? It's the point they say there, isn't it? The whole thing of asking better questions or more pertinent questions, getting to the root, and the more information, the more data you can gather, the more, and you say, it's not that you're going to help them write a will or help them buy life assurance, but it's something that they can put in place. And it's, I'm sure you're saying, if like, by doing this is how the impact it'll have as well. So go put it in place or whatever, and then this is how it's going to impact your finances or your tax or whatever. So it's as you say, the more you can ask people, and again, it's those things that people might not necessarily even think of to consider.
For those sort of smaller SME businesses, that's the kind of stuff that makes a huge difference for them. And then for bigger businesses, it's that clarity around the financials. It's about getting more granular detail. I mean, an example, I worked, this was before I set up the business. I worked in a 65 million pound business. And on a Friday of every week, we could broadly identify what the revenue and the profitability of that business was on a Friday evening, because we'd worked out the figures to such a degree that if we knew how many events we were doing, how many sales we'd made, we had the average costs of delivering those services and those events, and we can almost say our profitability, give or take any unusual one-off marketing pieces, something, will be this. And that's because over 18 months we distilled and analysed the numbers, so we knew that so many sales meant so much profit. our overheads were pretty standard. Therefore, we'd know that if we had a good sales week, we could more or less guess the profit for that month or for that week.
Yeah.
And then if we had less sales, we kind of guess. And broadly, by the time we got to the end of the month and pulled out the formal figures, they were broadly as we had them from our,
predicted.
our one pager on a Friday. We had a much bigger pack,
Yeah.
but the numbers broadly fell out as we expected because we'd worked it through
Yeah.
to such an extent that we knew our average profitability, we knew our average costs, we knew our average revenue, and you just needed to get how many of these. That's our revenue, and then we could say, well, given the average cost of this and this, our profit subject to any unusual overheads is going to be this, and invariably it was pretty close every month.
Yeah, it's incredible. Just again, just shows what you've been talking about throughout the chat, the sort of the attention to detail and the time, taking the time to do it and the repetition of it. And when you do it right, the numbers then speak for themselves and that. Absolutely.
So a decision could be made on a Monday about things. We're going to do more of this or less of this. So you didn't have to wait till 6 or 8 weeks after the month end when you had some again. On a Monday in the middle of the month, a decision could be made. We're going to spend more on some marketing because we've seen it drop 2 weeks in a row and something. Or we could say, actually, we're going to throw a bit more investment into this because we can see there seems to be growth here. Let's put a few more people on to do this and this and this. So that's good decision making.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen. That happens over 2 years of work to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely. So one of the big things from the chat is, one is the sort of getting someone into it might be tidying up, we say, get them into a solid position or whatever. But once you're then continuing to put the information in the correct way, the data in the correct way, the financial systems in place, as you said, though, it's been giving then people, enabling them to make better decisions because the information that they have is trusted. So as you say, whether it's that they can employ someone, do some marketing, invest, draw money, you know what I mean? It's all based off correct information. So the decision making, that whether it's a small business or a bigger business, is all based on data. It's not a guesswork.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean you always make the right decision, but what it does mean is you're making the best decision you can. And if it's the wrong decision, you'll see it relatively quickly. So then you can correct course again because you'll see the decision looks like it's the wrong one. And now we've made the decision to not do it anymore.
Absolutely.
That's the power. And so therefore, when I say, well, accountancy is actually really, really exciting, it's not boring at all. It's these kind of outcomes that make it really exciting when you know you can run a £65 million business. You can almost know what's happening every Friday through a one-page document that gets distributed, and you're broadly going to be there, and decisions can be made on a Monday if necessary. Or, someone is now able to take more of a salary out. In fact, they were very exposed, and you encourage them, and they've now got cover for various things. So when they fall over, or if they have a fallout with their business partner, or COVID comes and they lose a lot of their income, you've contributed towards, making sure they're fairly well covered. So you've got lots of different ways that, finance, accountants, the finance structure can make a big difference to businesses and individuals' lives.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's always a few questions I like to ask people when they come on, but before I go into them, there's another question I want to ask is, the name of your business, is it Sakura? Is that how it's pronounced?
Sakura. It means cherry blossom.
Okay,
Japanese for cherry blossom. So again, I was out in Australia, so I've traveled to Japan a couple of times, given I was out there. And I used to speak the language reasonably well. So don't test me now, I've forgotten it all.
No.
So I said, when I set up my business, I was going to use Sakura as the name of the business, particularly because accountants call their companies Connolly and Co. and Joe Blogs and Co. And I said, I don't want my business to sound like that. I want us to be different. I want us to act different and be different. And we can only do that if we start right, which is a slightly interesting name, a pink brand, that kind of thing. So that's pretty much where it came from, is just try and start right, do things a little bit differently. I've got plenty of commercial experience, so we weren't just going to do the audit and the compliance, and that was it. We wanted to do more interesting work, more interesting clients.
Yeah. No, it's cool. No, because obviously before we were chatting, I was looking at, because I was in Japan a year and a bit ago. So it was at 24. I was the first time I visited. We went for a couple of weeks. So amazing place. So when
Fantastic.
Yeah, oh, it's
Fantastic
fabulous.
place. Yeah,
Such an amazing. I'll
love it.
definitely be back. So no, that's why I was like, because you say for an accountancy, you say, well, it is different. I think that's really is a really cool name. So no, that's
And it's
why I
also
wanted to know.
quite a nice image as well. So if you're in
Yeah.
Japan, you probably would have heard people talking about the a Sakura season,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
May time.
Forecasts they do.
Yeah, and the trees are in bloom and everything's very nice and pink and lovely, and people picnic underneath the trees in the
Yes.
sunshine. It's all, so it's a nice image as well as being a nice word and a phrase and something a bit different. It's got quite a nice image for me in terms of sort of a positive, pleasant, sunny, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love it. No, I absolutely love it. So I was just interested in the genesis of it. So thanks for sharing that. So the questions I did want to ask you then. So I'm one of those people. I do find quotes and phrases. I think it can be quite empowering, impactful. Any quotes or phrases that are important to you?
Important to me, maybe less so important to others, but there's a phrase called "you're standing on a mountain of value." It's Daniel Priestley came up with it originally, and what he said is that with your years of experience in the job you work in, there's probably lots of things that you think are the most mundane, boring things and are not worth mentioning. But when you mention them to someone else who's not an accountant, for example, they go, that's amazing. I didn't know that. That's fabulous. So he always says you need to stand back a bit and look at your mountain of value. What have you done over the last 10, 20 years that seems quite, mundane and not very exciting to you? But actually, when you look at it carefully, other people might think that's amazing, that's interesting, that's really valuable. So find those things and then make sure you're telling people about them and talking about it, because they're the things that will attract people or allow them to say, well, that was really helpful, or that's the kind of thing I need in my business. So standing on a mountain of value.
I love that. Absolutely. And I completely echo that. We so often, if we allow ourselves to dismiss what we think comes naturally to ourselves, but it could be over, as you say, years of experience, education, research, reading, interest, that we just, because it becomes almost innate within ourselves, we don't actually value it anymore. We forget, and it's so easily to dismiss that. So I love it. It's a great reminder to people listening or watching. It's like, yeah, remember what you bring, and not be ashamed or scared or shy to talk about it and share it, because it will prove valuable to other people. Absolutely. No, thanks for that. That was a good one. I like that. Who do you think have been the biggest influences in your life?
Obviously, I have to say my parents, of course.
Yeah, they did seem to be, didn't they?
Yeah, if they they told me to leave really quickly, then maybe that was, they wanted me out of the house. I'm not quite sure. They were looking after my future career, but I guess I have to name check them. A couple of my bosses I've probably learned quite a lot from.
Yeah.
So again, accountants, but probably the more commercial ones, who maybe brought to my attention the fact that to be a good accountant isn't about the debits and credits and reconciling. That's part of doing things the right way. But actually, being interesting and presenting things, communicating, and sort of coming up with things ahead of maybe business owners asking for them is actually really valuable for them. And it's getting into that mindset and being able to show things and explain things to them. So probably, one of my bosses in the Isle of Man, Eugene, you may or may not be watching today. I'd probably suggest that he was one of those guys who first sort of, think outside the box and be as commercial as you can. Probably him predominantly, I think.
Yeah.
And obviously, the firm I trained in Dublin, very, very different, but a really good training environment and really a good starting point to be a good accountant.
Yes.
So I'd probably credit those as well. So, Keith, John, David, I'll give them a name check as well.
Yeah, very good. I love that because, well, one of the things is, again, I find interesting from people's whatever jobs they're in or industries they're in. And we kind of touched on it a little bit with the AI, in a sense of jobs are always changing. Tech is always changing. Things are always going to be coming and going. Things are going to make things better or worse, etc. But the point that you said there about that, the gentleman in the Isle of Man, and say be more commercial. And one of the things, the communication, how you talk to another human, how you express yourself, how you explain yourself, how you get it, that something could be quite complex, to disseminate that and distill it to that someone can understand it, but do it in a way that's personable. That's the way that's it's how it's still going to be, despite all the tech we have coming in, how one human is able to communicate with another human and get the things across that are important, that are going to be applicable to that person, is still going to be key. You can have all the tech in the world. If you cannot, as a human, explain it to another human, then good luck, because the next person will. So I think that's a really valuable thing that person told you. You've got to be able to talk to these people, and not necessarily just telling them about the debits and credits. How do you explain it to them? How do you present it to them? Because everything is about communication in the end, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, agree.
Love it.
Agree. Yeah.
It really has been fascinating to talk to you, because I say, like, it's such a world of that I've no knowledge about, or be honest, necessarily interest in. But what I do, for me doing it, if you know what I mean, it's like you can hear, like, I talk. That's my thing. Like, and I listen. But what I find really interesting, and what you shared about, is what I found really interested in, is the impact of what you do. And I think that's really so valuable if anyone's watching, listening, and they're thinking about, oh, I should have or could have or whatever. The actual impact of what you're able to do, not just on the business, but then individuals, I think is something that people are probably not thinking about. Do you know what I mean? And they're not taking into account. So I do thank you for sharing it, because I think it is impactful for what you do, because it clearly shows not just from the business perspective, but then on the personal perspective of people. So I do thank you for coming on and chatting to me. It has been really, really interesting. I have one final question for you, though, which is, Damian, what's important for your future?
Well, I'd like Leinster to win another Champions Cup final. That'll be quite important for me.
They keep getting to the finals.
I keep turning up to the finals and they keep losing. So I'm going to give it another go this year. But hopefully they'll win another one. So that's important to me. I mean, I think I'd like to go on more holidays, spend a bit more time, maybe back in Australia for a few months every year if I could. And that'd be quite important, because, as I say, all work and no play makes Damian a dull boy. So hopefully 12 or 18 months, I can start maybe taking the foot off the pedal slightly and taking a bit of a more relaxed approach to a few things. So I think that's quite important. And probably, my wife might appreciate me being around a little bit more as well.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Damian. It really has been such a pleasure to chat to you and hear about what you do. I want to make sure that people continue to learn about you, follow you, and what you and your business do. So there'll be links in the show notes, but if you want to give a shout out now of where people can follow you online.
LinkedIn is a great place. Damian Connolly, FCCA, I think is the best way to connect with me there. sakurabusiness.co.uk or sakurabusiness.ie for our Dublin office. And otherwise, we have a YouTube channel, details I can't remember, so you'll have to put it in the show notes.
Yeah, no problem.
But they're probably the best ways to contact us, and always willing to have a call, always willing to meet someone for coffees. That's always a good way to start a relationship, and then we can see where we go from there.
100%. As I say, all the links will be in the notes there, to make sure you check out Damian on LinkedIn and check out his business websites if this is what you need. Thank you, Damian, again, so much for talking to me today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if it resonated, share it with someone who might need it too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment or ask a question, and let's keep the conversation going. I'm James Dean, and I'll be back soon with another real conversation to help you reconnect with what truly matters. Until then, take care and stay curious.